seats. Thanks for setting me up, Ron. Thank you very much. My mother would be blushing hearing that. Hey, I want to compliment each and every one under this circus tent and the ones that are still out in the wings out there. This was very, very impressive. How many other communities around this country do you think got together while there was still time to consider the future? Not many, I think, is the answer to that. You just did it. You took the single most important step any region or group of communities could do and think, what do I want this place to look like 20, 30, 50 years from now? Once you have that in your mind, you can get there. You just got to work at it. And for my money, there's only one way to get to that end. No one person, no one entity has the wherewithal or the money or the knowledge, the skills, the people to do it on their own. The only way we will be able to realize the vision and visions that you've come up with here today are by partnering. That's it. Together, we can succeed. Individually, I guarantee you, we will be eaten alive. Anybody here been to Myrtle Beach? A lot of people. It's a fine town, isn't it? It's just south of Wilmington. But my opinion, if we do nothing here and allow market forces, commercial forces to take over, to take the reins, we could well look like Myrtle Beach in 20 or 30 years. Again, from my perspective, we need to do everything possible to maintain the fundamentally agrarian, rural nature of eastern North Carolina. That's what makes this place so darn special. And to try and do that while building a viable future. I think it can be done. Slide. Oh, who's got the clicker? I want that man fired. See, this is why God made AIDS, you know. And I don't have one anymore. It's killing me. No, I can do this, thanks. Hey. Hello, I just went. Back on? All right. Real quickly, why in the world would you want a partner? I just got done talking about this. So you should have the answer already, because you can't do it alone. The military in particular, you know, needs enduring, realistic training areas. If we are encroached upon, and you've seen it left and right throughout the country, you know, if you're interested in having your military bases and stations in this general area, you've got to protect us, because eventually the forces of humanity will march up to our front gates and they will swallow us, and we will go away. Together, we can ensure that that doesn't happen, but it's a two-way street. The civil sector doubtless will have to make some concessions to the military mission, and the military has to make some concessions, quite a few hopefully, to be value added to that community in a very clear and compelling way. We've got to develop land use plans across the board, federal, regional, state, local, you name it, that dovetail into one another, that will get us to that future that you all have envisioned here. Slide. I'm still waiting on my aide to do that. Hey, some notional partnerships here. No surprise. To pull off this future that you just got done thinking about, you got to work with the feds, multi-state, regional, because it crosses boundaries, the state, multi-county regional, and of course with the military. These are just some examples I'm gonna blow through here really quickly. Multi-state SURPASS, the Southeast Regional Partnership for Planning and Sustainability, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi. These states are working together in SURPASS to a common end. Again, this kind of cooperation is virtually unprecedented. It is amazing. At the state level, you know, the North Carolina Advisory Council, the State Cabinet Council, local cooperative planning groups, you got it. All of these things working together toward a common goal. It's partnerships. You got to share. You got to give a little so you can take a little. Powerful, powerful stuff. Where is the military right now in eastern North Carolina? Well, frankly, over the years, we've lost a lot of land, air, sea, frequency, spectrum rights. There's been certainly an increase in urban development, encroaching our gates. There's lately been an increase in military presence, but that's sloped off a fair bit right now. But it will be back, doubtless. And we've got some really significant, important energy challenges and environmental challenges. We've got to solve those challenges. We've got to meet them, and I think we can do that best, again, in conjunction with one another, with the local community. This yellow little circle that those of you in the back can barely see spreads out from the ocean, and it's a depiction of military training, of an aviation military training route. It's as the name suggests, a route that our aircraft use for training. I want to show you how that route holds up over time. This is a snapshot or a pictorial view of the housing density in the great state of North Carolina in 1940. Basically, for those of you in the green in the back, you can just see a large area of green in the state. You're about to watch the march of humanity to the sea. This is a 2000 snapshot, and you can see the yellow and the orange moving. This is what it's going to look like in 2030 if we don't do anything. And you can see you may be able to see that those routes, the military aviation training routes that I'd mentioned earlier, are totally swamped. Now, that's important because if these are low-level routes, and if buildings are built underneath those aviation training routes, it's hard to fly low-level. And these are wide swaths of land, 1 mile either side of center line. So this is just one example of how encroachment can deleteriously affect the military mission. That's a big word for a jarhead. Well, you can use it, sir. Real quickly, this is a view of what our airspace, Cherry Point airspace looked like in '57. Pretty big. This is what it looked like in 1978. Fairly small. And this is 2008. It's an 85% reduction. And, these things are incremental. It's one bite at a time. You don't lose it all at once. But this is the kind of encroachment that the military deals with and that we have to do, eyes wide open and make sure we understand the effects, because it can't go on forever, or else, frankly, we will be forced out because we've got to train. So what are we doing about it? More importantly, we've developed long-range training mission needs and made those available to the state so the state knows what our requirements are. We're building good partnerships because we need a lot of friends. We need people who understand our mission, and then we need to look at how we can help. We've created good maps. One of the things that, that we were able to pull off with the other services in the great state of North Carolina was to provide the governor and the legislature with what we called a good map. And this is from all the services, telling the state government exactly what areas of the land were important to it. Red, yellow, green kind of thing. And, you know, as simple as that sounds, it had never been done before. You know, the legislature had no idea what lands were important, you know, far-flung, off the base. They knew where the bases were, but not where all the training areas were and where all the aviation routes were. Very powerful. We surveyed the private landowners around the area. We want to know what's important to you. What do you want? What are we doing that is annoying you, and how can we stop? How can we work together? We shared compatible resource maps with others outside the military. So again, we're trying to build this consensus and this common vision of what's important, what's not, and where we're going. And most importantly, the last bullet here, we're leveraging each other's expertise, time, and money. At the end of the day, this is all about real money and priorities. And we've got to get that right up front, because there's no recovery at some point if you let it go too far. And there are plenty of examples of that around the nation. Here's one of the big ideas that I'd love to claim credit for, but it's probably Paul Friday's mission over there to take credit for this thing. But it's a linking of working lands, conservation, and national defense. And we're the prototype here. You know, that agribusiness here has a $74 billion impact, and that's huge. The military is number 2 with $25 billion. We need to work together to leverage those monies. And private landowners are going to be the key to achieving that mutual benefit. We need to get them on our side and help them out. The overarching goal here, in order to do what we can to mitigate this onslaught of humanity and the rush to the sea, is we'd like to keep farms and farming and forests and forestry. So, how do we do that? Market-based conservation. You know, this great state has lost 1 million acres between 90 and 2002. 1 million acres of forest land that will never be recovered. Since 2002, we've lost more than 6,000 farms. 6,000, about 600,000 acres. And as you saw earlier, since 1957, we've lost a boatload of the Marine Corps' airspace. What we're trying to do is create a voluntary system program that provides incentives for landowner commitments so that we can keep those lands that are important to the military, and we can allow the military to continue to use those while providing also benefit for the landowner. And what we're doing is pretty sporty. It's never been done before. What we're about to do here is conserve the rural working lands underneath our military training routes in eastern North Carolina. This is that same kind of yellow snake you saw earlier on a slide. I know it's tough to see for all of you in back, but this red line, nearly a circle, is a military training route. And we're very interested in ensuring that there's not incompatible development underneath that military training route. So, you know, the U.S. government is typically can be like an 800-pound gorilla. And, you know, if we're interested in a chunk of land, typically the government's response is, we want to buy that land and we want that land in perpetuity. Perpetuity. For those of you like me who had no idea what that word meant, it's a long time. Really is. So what we have worked out here and are working is to work with the landowners underneath this military training route and develop contracts where we will pay them money, and this is in cooperation with the state, both state dollars and federal dollars. We will pay them good money to ensure that their lands are not developed in an incompatible way with the aviation activities that are occurring over their land. Read, no skyscrapers. We are also working with ag here, obviously locally, and this will be administered at the local level. And clearly, the goodness around this is not just the aviation routes. Think about the natural resources that are under this 2-mile wide corridor around eastern North Carolina. Think of what that means. It's huge. This is land that we will be able to keep in farming. And more importantly, perhaps, if you're an environmentalist, you know, something like this, if you can get a lock on the land for some significant period of time, it kind of looks a lot like an environmental corridor for flora and fauna. That's pretty huge. If we were to extrapolate this military training route to a little bit larger slice of the eastern seaboard, now you just can't see that at all. That's excellent. That's a black blob. But if you were really close to that screen, like closer than I am right now, because we can't see squat up here either, this is a web that crisscrosses the entire eastern seaboard. These are aviation training routes. Now this really excites an environmentalist because now you're really talking environmental corridors. You know, one of the problems with development as we encroach upon Mother Nature is we have islands of biodiversity, but those islands won't survive long unless they can connect with one another. This is a way that we could connect them and also take care of the military mission on a up and down the eastern seaboard. We're getting real close to the end, so hold on. A couple of things that I'd like to end with in our partnership slide that you saw earlier is a little thing called Fuel the Force. Not too long ago, we were looking actively for ways to give back, and we started asking ourselves in the military, the Marine Corps, some significant questions. It's, well, how about our fuel? How are we taking full use of the technology today? One, to be green, we would like to have biofuel and agri-fuel if we possibly could. Why don't we work toward that? And that is exactly what we're doing. We're fueling the force now here actively, trying to use at every opportunity agri-fuel and using the crops grown here in North Carolina. Feeding the force. Again, what in the world? We are importing food into North Carolina. Why would we do that? You know, we ought to be using to the maximum extent practicable homegrown chow, right? It's grown here in North Carolina, and feed that to our folks in our chow halls. We ought to get with the commissaries and sell food grown locally in North Carolina. Doesn't that make sense? That makes a lot of sense. All right, I'm going to read this one to you, and this is my last slide, so you can go back to eating good chow. And this is, I think this best sums up the situation with regards to market forces and conservation and protection of the military mission. This quote reads as follows: "Nevertheless, the record clearly shows that conservation can't succeed by charity alone. It has a fighting chance, however, with well-designed appeals to self-interest. The challenge now is to change the rules of the game so as to produce new incentives for environmental protection, geared to both society's long-term well-being and individuals' self-interest." And that's what we're doing with this market-based conservation. We are making this business of protecting the military mission and protecting the fundamentally agrarian nature of Eastern North Carolina in a way that appeals to people's economic self-interest. It can't lose. People will make money doing the right thing, both, both for themselves and for this state. And I'm proud to have been a part of this in my past, but all this is in your future. This is in your hands, and I will tell you, I mean, based upon what I've seen today, the great partnering that's going on in here and the vision for this state that you will arrive at, there's no doubt that North Carolina is going to be a military-friendly state, and North Carolina is going to be an incredibly productive economic powerhouse while still being a wonderful place to raise a family. Thanks.